Season 3, Episode 3 of the Cordo Coaching Chronicles, the series where you get a look inside what Magic Limited Coaching is like. I'm here, joined, as always, by Nathan. Nathan, how's it going? And as I always ask you, how are your Adventures in the Forgotten Realms going?
It's gotten a lot more enjoyable over the last couple weeks as the opportunity to move away from Black Red has materialized.
Yep.
You know, you and I were talking about this just before the show, and I feel like the ability to check out some other draft decks and colors has presented itself, and I'm having more fun now than I was before when I felt like I had to get in the Black Red and that's the thing, and now there's a lot more wiggle room, which I'm really enjoying.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way, actually. I've been drafting black-white. I've been drafting green-white a lot. I've even been drafting blue, actually. I had this weird love affair with Bar the Gate in this past week. But we won't get into that on today's episode. On today's episode, we're actually going to be doing some gameplay. Because, we figure we've done a few draft walkthrough episodes for this format. I think at this time in the format, it's probably a good idea to look at some gameplay. I think it's been a few episodes since we've actually been able to do that, you and me. So I'm excited to jump into. I think you've brought two games for us to look at today, and yeah, I'm excited to see how you played them out and if we can learn anything from them.
Perfect. Yeah, these are two that I picked that I felt, as per usual, were close or closer than they needed to be, and then I had some decisions that I felt like I could have been doing different stuff, but I didn't really know what it was. And so I'd love to get your thoughts and insight on that.
Totally, yeah. And I think one of the things for today, which is going to be great, is whenever I go over gameplay with people, I always like them to kind of guide me through the games and through the turns. I feel like when I'm the one to guide them, I can kind of give some leading questions, and it's always great to hear from your perspective what you were thinking, because I think that's the best way to uncover any inconsistencies or discrepancies, right? Kind of get to the root of, that's maybe not the best logic. Let's dial that back a bit and go from from square one and see if we can get to square two and square three and square four. So let's jump in. All right, so we'll just skim through this game here. We've got a green-white deck here. Was this deck particularly life gain focused, do you remember, or was it kind of just like a green-white mid-rangey deck?
I think I wanted it to be more life gain focused, but I don't know that I had a lot of the payoffs in this one. I had the Celestial Unicorn or whatever it is. I had I think one or two of those, but I don't think it was particularly life gain. It was more mid-rangey. Yeah,
gotcha. So when there's the unicorn there. So we've got, pretty decent start. We've got a 2-drop into a 3-drop. And I'm going to, like I said, I want to have you guide me through your thought process here, but I'm going to stop at a few points just so we can have some discussion points here. Here's kind of an interesting one right here, actually, right? So you don't attack with the Innkeeper into the Forsworn Paladin. And I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
I wanted to get at least one more trigger to grow the Unicorn, and I was concerned that they might trade. And I felt that my Innkeeper was more valuable than their Paladin.
Yeah, it's always a tough decision to make. Is my premium creature better than your premium creature, right? And it's always tricky. How do you weigh that? And I think in a vacuum, I always just say, well, I like to keep my game pieces around so I can enact my synergies, enable my synergies, my life gain stuff, until I have a bit more information, basically. For as long as I can, I will play to my deck's strengths and, play my deck out as, this is what my deck's trying to do, so let's play it out like that. So I think, in general, I agree with not trading here. The one thing that would maybe push me to trade or offer the trade is the fact that my opponent is stuck, or it looks like they're maybe stuck on all swamps. So this Paladin might be a little more valuable than it looks on face value, because it might unlock multiple red cards. But I think overall, I like your decision here. So we move on.
But you would have, I do think in retrospect, you probably could have popped in 1 point of damage there.
Oh, you hear something that's kind of interesting, right? I didn't even notice that, or I didn't even note that when we here. You can attack here because you have bull strength. And then if you go for the trade, well, you're not thrilled to trade the bull strength here, but I think you're more than happy to. Basically, this comes down to, I don't think they will trade here, but if they do, I have an answer for it. You know what I mean? I would like my Innkeeper to stay alive. And like I said, I would like to keep my game piece around. I don't think they're going to trade, but if they do, you know what? I have a buyout clause. So I would have attacked beforehand and then bull strength after if they did block. And if they don't, you still get to do the same thing, cast the Celestial Unicorn, get your trigger.
I think as somebody who has limited experience with the Innkeeper, you cherish, or you really want to hold on to those unique experiences at the beginning. Like, I don't like. And so, like, this is this is one of my first experiences with the Innkeeper. I want to experience what this is like, and it leaving the board earlier, I think I was reticent to even engage in that, and I was worried about getting quote unquote time walked. You know what I mean? Like, I cast the Bull Strength and then I didn't do anything that turn, but in reality, I removed a good piece from their board. So that's a good observation.
Yeah, it's really small, but sometimes, I'm sure we all remember those games where you lost with your opponent at 1 life, right? And not to say this is going to matter in every game, but it's going to matter in some games. So we move on here. They go to their turn. Still look like they're a little bit choked on mana, and they snap off the Dragon's Fire. They say, all right, I don't want to get that thing any bigger than it already is. We move on, and all right, we have some other decisions to make here. So what you do here is you go for Minimus Containment. Oh, you attack first, and then you go Minimus Containment on the Paladin. Thoughts on that?
I made the same observation that you had previously pointed out a turn earlier, which is that the Paladin was fixing their mana, and it did look like they were mana screwed. So my 2 choices were basically attack. If they block, I have Rally Maneuver or Bull Strength, which they didn't do, and then I could follow it up with the Veteran Dungeoneer or the Minimus Containment, and I wanted to basically hinder their mana, so I Minimus Containment.
Yeah, so I think here I would say that the logic doesn't check out quite for me there, because the thing is, you Minimus Containment their Paladin, you fix their mana basically.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
They have a treasure. Now, obviously, this Paladin will fix them over the course of multiple turns, but they've got two red mana now, and I like the idea of, let me punish them because they're mana screwed. Let me try to dig them into the ground a little more. But you know what punishes them when they're mana screwed? Playing a creature. Right? If you just play the 3/4, you put pressure on board, really makes them do something. It even costs them a life to activate the Paladin, so they have to pay life if they want to fix their mana. I think the better thing to do here when you notice your opponent's mana screwed is just try to attack them, especially when you have 2 combat tricks in hand, meaning combat's going to go well for you. So I think the combination of, I would like to pressure them here, and I don't actually think this solves the problem of I would like to mana screw them, but then actually helps them here, makes me just want to play the creature, basically.
Got it. How powerful is that Paladin? I've only played against it once, and it really wrecked me. But again, that was a different game, different decks.
Yeah, it's good. It's definitely good. Like, it chips in for early damage. It does make treasures for cards that care about treasures, and then in the late game, it makes everything attack for more or trade up. So yeah, I like the card quite a bit.
Okay. All
right, so they hit their mountain, and the game gets a little bit harder. And already we are seeing getting a little bit punished, right? They jam a 6/6 that they definitely wouldn't have been able to cast had you not Minimus Containment. That's another sub point about Minimus Containment. I really try my best not to play that before turn 6 or 7 or something. I really want that to be a later game removal spell, so that this doesn't happen. This in particular, where they just get to ramp them out to their 6-drop early, right? There's a lot of good 6 and 5 drops in this format, so I'm assuming my opponent often has one in their opening hand, or at least in their top 10 cards or something. And yeah, when they get to play their 6/6 a turn ahead of schedule, it's really not great for you. So that's another point. If we just dial back for a minute, that's another point that would make me not want to, or make me, if I was thinking about containing, that would point me in the direction of not containing. Basically, that's just another thing on the laundry list of reasons I wouldn't want to contain.
Just to play devil's advocate there,
yeah.
Couldn't they have just paid a life and then made the treasure and then cast the elemental anyway?
Yeah, that's a good point. They could have. I guess I'm more speaking just in general to Minimus Containment. And you're right. In this situation, you're right. They could have done that, and they still would have been able to do that. All right. So moving on. Now we're in a little bit of a pickle, right? They got 4 cards in hand. We don't have much in hand. We have to kind of hope to draw some good stuff and hope they don't have much. And we drew a pretty good card here. We draw the Owlbear. So before we even fast forward through this turn, I always like to do the old draw step pause. And what that is after your draw step, you're presented with new information. Now you have an Owlbear, right? We were on our opponent's turn. We're like, man, we have a 1/1, we have a 3/4, they have a 6/6, and they played a 4/3. Oh, that's awful. and that can kind of leave you in like kind of like a ugh, you know, like feeling a little bit yucky when you're like, man, like this game's going so rough for me. I just like to refocus a lot of times during my draw step. I draw my card for turn. Oh, it's an owlbear. Now what do I think of this board state? Now what do I think of this game, right? So in today Nathan's opinion, what do you think of this board state after you draw your owlbear, and what do you want to do basically?
So this is the reason I selected this video to walk through with you. The whole next X turns, I struggle between how do I get these combat tricks out of my hand to remove stuff from their board versus how do I get more creatures on the board like the owlbear? Like, which of these am I prioritizing? So in this case, I prioritized putting the owlbear down, I believe.
Yeah, and I think that's really smart here. So basically what you're asking yourself here is, how do I leverage these combat tricks, which are essentially dead cards if I can't line things up right? Because, they're a bit conditional, as combat tricks tend to be. And I think that's a really important question. That's like, how am I best using my cards? Or, a way I like to put it sometimes is like, how am I using... can I use all parts of the animal in a way? Like, can I use this combat trick not just as like, okay, I maybe won, my 3/3 attacked into their 4/3 and I won that combat, to, can I actually use this bull strength and this rally maneuver to turn my board position into a win? Because I think a lot of times in this current situation, this board state here, I think a lot of people would attack their veteran dungeoneer into the 4/3 and be like, well, I have a combat trick, I can just win here, right? I can win that combat, that's profitable for me. They're looking at that individual, this lines up well with that, right? But if you zoom out a little bit, I don't really like that line, and I like the line you took here where you just play the owlbear, because, for a few reasons, right? The level one reason is combat tricks just get better the more creatures you have. The more creatures you have on board, the more places you can put your combat tricks, right? But if you were to attack the dungeoneer into the clattering skeletons, I think they always block there for sure, because like they get value on their death trigger, right? Mm-hmm. And if you win the combat, sure, but then what, right? You have a 3/4. They still have a 6/6. Yeah. It's not that big. It's not that great. And the other thing is, the thing about the owlbear is you gain a life off of the innkeeper, and now you have a good double block, right? So all that on top of the fact that you're drawing
owlbear.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And you draw another owlbear.
And you draw another owlbear, exactly. And one more thing on the list of great reasons to play the owlbear, you get to use all your mana this turn, right? Yeah. I think that might be the most important thing. So I really like to playing the owlbear there. All right, so they attack. You say no blocks. I like that. If you do say no blocks, let's see.
I think I said. Oh, interesting. No, I think I traded with them.
You do trade here. So what's the thought?
Let me take a step back to where I was at the time. I think I knew the next turn I was not going to be able to do a combat trick. Mm-hmm. I was going to probably cast the owlbear again, and I would rather trade my 3/4 than my 4/4 for the skeletons. That was my thought process.
What if you just take it?
I mean, that's always an option.
So my thoughts here are, I think I'm okay just taking 4, especially because I have, again, the innkeeper, which is going to gain me a few life over the course of the next few turns if I can play a creature or 2-3 life maybe. And I have this rally maneuver plus bull strength. So I think in your situation here, you actually want to sacrifice, or you want to use your life total as a resource to keep your board presence as wide as it can be, basically. Because again, like I said before, the more creatures you have on board, the better your combat tricks become, right? The more places you can use them. So I wouldn't sacrifice my board presence here, or it's not even sacrificing it, but I wouldn't trade off my board presence here. One of the questions I always ask myself when I am given really any game scenario situation is, what resource am I the shortest on? Or what resource do I need to focus on the most, or even the least, right? And the 3 resources, of course, being cards in hand, life total, and mana, right? Well, you're okay on mana. You can mostly cast your stuff. You're not going to be, double spelling, triple spelling, but you can cast 1 or 2 cards, spells per turn. I'm not super worried about that. The 2 resources I'm looking at in this situation are really cards on board or cards in hand, right? And your life total, right? I think you're fine on life total, so I don't really want to sacrifice cards.
Okay.
If that makes sense,
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I would not make that trade there, but I don't think it's like terrible to make the trade by any means. All right, so they venture. They scry, they go top. You play an owlbear, which is nice, and you have a Minimus Containment and Bard in hand. So you pass the turn. I agree. I don't think you want to Minimus there and attack. I agree with what you did here. Just play the owlbear. We keep going, and they play a Jade Sellsword. Okay, so the boards are getting built out, and we're actually, I don't know, if you ask me, we're in a pretty advantageous position, really. Like, they don't have good attacks. We've got 5 cards in hand to their 2 cards in hand. We've got a removal spell. We've got 2 creatures. I'm thinking we're doing pretty well here ourselves. So let's see what we do.
I was trying to decide between Minimus Containment the 6/6, casting the Inspiring Bard to get more permanents onto the board and pump an owlbear, or attacking and leaving Bull Strength and Rally Maneuver up. I have no idea which is the right line. I don't even remember what I did.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of choices here, right? Like, I guess this comes down to, at this point, what's my big picture goal for the next 4 turns, right? And I guess I'd throw that to you. What do you think your big picture goal is for the next 4 turns or so?
I think if I can get that 6/6 off the board, I'm in much better shape.
Yeah.
That's what my thoughts were.
Right, so if that's the case, I guess the question I would ask further from that is, when do you want to do that? Do you want to do that now, or do you think it's going to come in a few turns?
As soon as possible, right?
As soon as possible. So let's see what happens. So if that's the case, if that's what Nathan thinks, maybe we Minimus Containment this turn. Oh, interesting.
I passed, hoping that they would. That's what I did. I passed, hoping they would attack into me, and I could use my combat tricks.
Oh, gotcha. So
defensively versus offensively.
Yeah, I think we're just going back to the same thing where I just want to get creatures on board. That just makes the combat trick so much better. And if they blow you out somehow, they have an instant speed removal spell. If you have a bunch of creatures on board, it's not as punishing, right? If you go for this line of use combat tricks to get the 6/6 off the board, and they have a combat trick of their own, or they have a removal spell, it's pretty darn bad, right? They kill your owlbear or whatever, your Bull Strength and maybe your Rally Maneuver go down the drain, and then you don't have much of a board, right? From your position here, what I would do is just play the Bard, gain some life. You don't really have, you could even send the owlbear. I think that's fine too, because you could trade with the 6/6, right? And then you just go from there. Actually, that's not a bad line at all. What if you just, dial back here, not passing the turn? What if you just play the Inspiring Bard and then give this +2/+2?
Yeah, that was probably a better line. But what if you were going to not play the Bard? Would you consider sending both owlbears? Because the Rally Maneuver can mess up combat on both sides.
Yeah, I would basically wait for a while. I would want to use, I think in general, when you have combat tricks, you want to wait not as long as possible, but you want to use them, later rather than sooner if your opponent has open mana, right? Because I'm always worried here about, you go for the trick, they have, a removal spell at this point. They have a Feign Death or something, or some combat trick that really messes you up here. So another thing about combat tricks is I really want to use them kind of when the dust is settled, right? When the boards have been built out and when my opponent doesn't have many cards in hand, right?
Sure.
If I play a Herd Gorger, right, they're probably going to have to use their removal spell on that. So that means that if they've used a removal spell on that, they're not going to want to use it. They're not going to have one to use it on the owlbears, right? So again, this just goes back to the idea of I just want to play out my creatures before my combat tricks most of the time. All right, so they do that. We go to they don't attack. Fair enough.
I basically just wasted a turn there.
Yeah, exactly. They made you waste a turn basically. And you know what? Going back, I don't think. So I am always putting myself in my opponent's shoes too, right? I don't think they would attack their 6/6 into your 2/4/4s, because then they just trade a 6/6 for a 4/4, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to think if you're trying to price your opponent into making a bad attack, it has to be an attack that you think they would make in the first place. And I don't think they would attack a 6/6 into 2/4/4s. That's just not profitable for them unless they have something else themselves.
Why wouldn't they send their 2/4/3s, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe they just don't want to trade them off. Maybe they think trading off isn't advantageous for them when you have 5 cards in hand, right? That's another kind of big picture concept. When your opponent has a bunch of cards in hand, it's usually a bad idea to trade off your board because you're going to be left with nothing. Well, they're left with 5 cards in hand,
sure.
So that might be something.
And I have my mana up, I guess.
Exactly. You play,
so I went with the Basilisk over the Bard, so I could leave up a combat trick. If I did the Bard, I couldn't leave up a combat trick, and then the Basilisk will trade for basically anything.
Yeah, and I think so. Going back to our question about what resource are we short on, or what resource do we need to pay attention to? Now we've got a lot of cards in hand and not a lot of mana, right? So I would actually be interested in spending more mana each turn, right? Like you were saying, if they don't do anything, you've kind of wasted some mana, and they're like virtually time walking you a lot of the time here. So I would just be playing the most expensive thing. I think playing the Bard, right? Get the most expensive stuff on the board. Because then you can empty, again, once you empty your hand, you just have free reign of the combat tricks, right? And I think it's best to use all your mana here as much as you can per turn when you have a lot of cards in hand. They play an Earth Cult, all right.
I sacrifice the forest.
Yeah.
I get a forest, and then I think I finally play the Bard here, I believe.
Let's see. You play, so you're still trying to.
Yeah, I'm still kind of attached to those combat tricks. So same mistake again, right? Basically.
Yeah, they go Fireball. That's annoying, and then they go Null Camp. Wow, and then they just attack you. So
yeah, that's not a card I was planning on playing around.
So kind of interesting. They kind of did what I was hoping you would do here, where you were asking, hey, why aren't they trading here? It's because they had a trick, right? They had something where they wanted to build their board up, and by trading, that makes this Null Camp much worse. If they have a big board, this Null Camp's great. If they go for trades, not so great, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it basically goes sideways for there. Yeah, right? You cast the removal spell. Hope to use the rally maneuver to good effect. And I think even if you do that, it's still a bit much. Yeah, and you go to -1 there. Yeah. So big picture of that game, I think the big thing is two big things, right? One, play your creatures out before your combat tricks. So I don't think, when you're hoping, especially against a good player, right? When you have 5 cards in hand, they're not going to attack into your open mana, right? They're going to suspect something. They're going to be like, well, I don't want to get gotten here. I'm just going to build up my board instead, right? And two, I think, you want to try to use all your mana each turn. I guess it's kind of tied to number 1. Instead of trying to just leave mana up, hoping to get them, it's better to just play out your cards, I think, 9 out of 10 times. All right, here we are in our second game. We've got a red-black deck going on here. And we've got...
Just wanted to point out, you see me highlighting Kick in the Door. When I was dragging cards into the deck, I accidentally dragged the wrong one and then started the thing, and I was like, why is this in here? So don't judge me for that card. There's a better card in the sideboard.
What's that card doing in
the
deck?
Yeah, it's a total mistake.
Let's see if we can win this game on a virtual mulligan to 6 in the first play. So we've got a Reaper's Talisman showdown here. We play a 2-drop. Yep. We go on. They play a 2/4, and well, we don't have much of a decision. We just basically just equip up and do our thing. You put a counter on the veteran. That makes sense. Yep, get him for a bit more damage.
Actually, just to flag that as a mistake, I put the counter on the veteran to scry and to make it a 3/3. I completely forgot that when it got equipped, it gets menace. So I did it as a 3/3 to be like, well, I thought it was going to attack as a 2/2 or a 3/3 death touch.
Right.
I forgot about the menace part, so I'm going to plead it. It worked great, but I
think the counter works too, right? Like the
yeah. That was my logic, is it can attack and not die. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, even if not dying aside, you get him for more damage, right?
I forgot about the menace part though. I was like, oh, great.
Reaper's Talisman Mirror Zero is funny because it's just like you kind of have to keep pace with your opponent. If you get an attack with the talisman, they have to get it in one, so you're like, constantly draining each other. All right, they play something that doesn't affect the board all that much, so you're pretty happy with that. And we just go on here. You attack. Yep. And we go for the Grim Bounty on the circle.
So this was a question I had.
Totally.
Would you have Grim Bountied there on the... Here is my logic. I wanted to Grim Bounty to kill the thing that they had the Reaper's Talisman on.
Yep.
So that they would have to spend mana again to re-equip.
Yep.
However, the Prosperous Innkeeper, in my opinion, is a good card. Would you have improvised weaponry the Innkeeper instead?
No, I don't think so. I think your logic is pretty sound. So like half of the value of the Innkeeper is the fact that it makes the treasure, right? And it's already done that, right? It's it's good. It's going to gain a few life over the course of the next few turns, most likely. But I think that the number one, the Circle of the Moon Druid is attacking you for 4. That's meaningful. And like you said, it has a talisman on it, which makes them re-equip if they want to get this effect again. So yeah, I totally agree. Just definitely just Grim Bounty it. There's some thought to like not Grim Bountying at all here, because you want to keep this for like Hill Giant Herd Gorger or something like that. I don't think that's actually that relevant, because you have talisman and a bunch of small creatures that you can just keep sending in. I don't care that much about a 7/6 basically. So in some situations, I'd be like, well, I really have to hold this Grim Bounty to kill an important card, right? I think in this situation, it's okay to spew your removal spell a bit earlier than you might, because you've got a good plan going on here of just attacking with talisman and draining them.
Okay. I've never actually looked at the Grim Bounty artwork. Is that like a dragon's head?
It's like a dragon head. I actually noticed that pretty recently too myself. So we move on here. They play a Troubadour and they attack. Yep, the drains keep coming. And I'm pretty happy with her position. So here's an interesting decision. What do we do here? We have a few options.
We have a couple lines. We can Bugbear and Jam both. Mm-hmm. We can Improvised Weaponry the Troubadour, then Bugbear and Jam both. Or we can Swarming Goblins and Jam with the Veteran. I think I Improvised Weaponry the Troubadour. I find that card to be like kind of a snowball-y card.
Yep. I would do that too. I mean, so it's kind of funny. Attacking with the Bugbear actually only adds 1 point of additional damage.
I think I didn't end up doing it because I realized that, because the Reaper doesn't drain that way, right?
Oh, interesting. So was your thoughts, so if you're not doing that, are you going to block with the Bugbear, do you think? So this is interesting, because I think if I'm talking to you, Nathan, today, obviously I can go, you would probably agree, well, if you're not going to block with this thing, you should attack with it, right? Because it does represent an additional point of damage. I think maybe that play, and you can tell me what you think, is potentially symptomatic of not thinking out the whole turn cycle, basically. Right? Where it's like...
Yeah, that's probably... I definitely thought about it ahead of time, and I was like, oh, it's only 1 more point of damage. I'd rather... I guess... No, yeah, you're probably right. Because, like, they couldn't block. They were tapped out. There's nothing that they could have done. So I should either commit to either getting that extra point of damage or potentially casting the Swarming Goblins instead or something. Yeah, so I agree with that assessment.
Yeah, you're pointing. I think what you're alluding to, which is definitely something to consider, is the fact that you won't gain 2 if you attack with the Bugbear. It's
a swing of 3 less that way.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's fine to give up, you lose 2 for dealing them 1, basically. I'm okay with that exchange.
Got it. Okay.
So we end up with...
so this is kind of the pickle I get caught in for the rest of the game, which is, I don't remember... I have to play this dance of, do I want to venture, or whatever the term is, with Acererak, or do I want to get other cards on the board?
Right.
And so... I don't really know what the right answer is.
I would say this is actually a similar situation to the combat trick situation we were talking about in the last one, where it's better just to develop your board before doing a non-board developing thing, basically. Right? I mean, that's just like a big picture heuristic for almost any format, almost any game of Magic, honestly. Like, get on board first, and then cast your card draw spell. Use your non-board affecting thing, right? Because card draw and... combat tricks and venturing, something repeated venturing, those are all, you have a lot more time to do that when you have a board, because you don't just get punished by opponent playing creature into creature into creature, and you can kind of leverage, card draw or something like a Acererak here when you have a board, because, you can venture and put a counter on something, you can venture and give their thing -4, and then you have a good attack, right? If you just keep venturing, it doesn't really amount to anything all that much. Sure. And the same thing goes with card draw, right? If you have a board, your card draw gets a lot better, because you're like, hey, I cast my card draw spell and I drew into a removal spell, right? Well, that removal spell is a lot better, because now I can reach out, kill their thing, and then attack them for 7, So yeah, I think no, this is another like 9 times out of 10 heuristic, where if you have the choice, just do the board affecting thing first, and then do the value thing after.
Okay. By the way, I think you said his name right. It's Acererak?
It's got an extra ER in there, but I think Acererak is perfectly acceptable. I think LZ was saying on LR that he's like, yeah, I just call it Acererak.
Okay, I didn't even realize
sounds ridiculous.
ER in there.
Yeah. So now we're kind of trading blows here. But I think with your Archlich, I'll just call it Archlich. With your Archlich here, you're pretty advantaged, right? You just have this like, they've got a talisman, which is this like, draining engine, but you've got one too, and you've got this venturing engine. So from this point on, I think my goal would just be like, contain the board, make good trades, and then just keep venturing for value. And it looks like I think that's what you do for the most part here.
Would you have jammed with both of them here? This was another question I had.
I don't think so. No, I think you would want to probably trade with their Owlbear if they attacked you.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. All right, so we venture, we make a Goblin, which is great. Yeah. They play Herd Gorger. Oh, wow, you drop Plundered Barbarian. That's just like one of the best draws you possibly could have drawn here.
I have gone up and up and up on that card because like
card's great. Yeah,
there's so many relevant artifacts getting the treasure token is huge. Like,
yep,
I would play as many of those as I could get. I think.
Oh yeah, totally. I agree. Yeah, and that feels great. And yeah, we attack. I like taking it. I think that's really smart.
Okay, that was
because yeah.
You didn't want to double block there because like
I think it's fine not because like you want to keep your creatures around when you have Reaper's Talisman because you want to just keep sending basically. If they jam a Purple Worm, you go for an attack. Yep, I like that. And I'm assuming they just take the additional point here. Yep. We play our Archlich again, put a counter on something.
So that was a mistake in my planning. I just wanted to flag that for you and for everybody.
Totally, yeah.
I thought in that dungeon that I could get to the -4, -0. And I was like, oh, I can... I mean, I was going to venture either way, right? But I was thinking, oh, well, if I had -4, -0, the Purple Worm or the Herd Gorger, like, they don't have a... Like, I can double block it and kill it and not lose that much.
Totally, yep.
So that, not thinking it didn't have a huge effect, but at the same time, like it definitely changed what I thought I could do.
And you were thinking about like, should I put the counter here or should I put the counter on the Plundering Barbarian? I like putting on the Plundering Barbarian, basically just spread it out a bit, right? If they have a removal spell, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket.
Yep, that's what I was thinking.
Draw a card here.
So one of the other questions I wanted to get your thoughts on, you don't know it yet, but which dungeon do I go into next?
Interesting. Yeah.
Because I have to go into the crappy one to get him on the board, right?
Yeah, so I wouldn't worry about getting him on the board. Okay. Basically, I think I would either go through... Based on this turn, what happens here, if my opponent makes an aggressive attack, if they play a really good creature or something, if they did that, I would go into the medium dungeon, the Fandelver. If they kind of were like, well, I gotta stay back a little bit, and you felt like you were ahead, I'd probably go into the long dungeon, because that's the one that gives me like, I feel like at that point, if they're not willing to pressure, then I can kind of go, okay, like, I can spend, 6 mana a turn going to the long dungeon, getting a bunch of value out of the, the stuff along the way, making some skeletons to put my Reaper's Talisman on. I basically would just feel safe spending more time, spending more mana at that point.
Sure.
And they do make an aggressive attack, so I probably, again, maybe I still go into the long dungeon after this turn's done, but this attack makes it less likely for me to do so.
Just double block the worm.
Yep, that makes sense.
I mean, I have to block to stay
alive.
It
is interesting, though, that they don't attack with the layer. Right?
Yeah, I think that's a mistake on their end. I think that a few times that they could have done something with that.
Yeah. That might tell me they have a trick or something, but I don't think so.
I think they just forgot about it.
They just forgot, I think, yeah. Because they could have just easily have activated it for like 3 or something and still used their trick, Yep. Okay.
And I don't think they activate, just as a spoiler, I don't think they activated at all this game.
Okay. Oh, you say no attacks. Interesting. Thoughts on that?
That's a good question. I was worried about dying, I think, so I didn't attack.
To the layer here?
Yeah, I was thinking about the layer, like removal spell, and then they jam both, and then let's see here, we could do the math. They would go to 6, they would go to 5, I would go to 9, right?
You go to 10 after all said and done, right? Because you drain 2 from the spawn, drain 2 from the talisman. So they would be at 7. You'd be at 10. So you can Like
with 2 blockers, they remove 1 and then jam. Yeah, I guess that could have lived. So yeah, that was a mistake.
you can also, you know what you can also do? You're just asking what dungeon to go into. You know what you can also do? You can make another goblin here.
Yeah.
Right? Where you go into the Fandelver twice, you make a goblin, you have another trump blocker. Right? If you go for this line where you, like, I would be looking to end the game here, is the big picture.
Sure.
Right? I don't think you want to be blocking. I don't think you want to be defensive here. I think, you know, your thought of, ooh, what if they draw a removal spell? What if they draw XYZ, right? That only gets worse as the game goes on.
Yeah.
You know, they only have, they probably have a lot of great cards in their deck that they could draw. You know what makes them not draw their good cards? If they're just dead, right? So I think you're, well, you know, it's close. Don't get me wrong. It's a scary situation. There's definitely draws they could have where you just lose the game on the spot. But I think you're better off trying to end the game here rather than not trying to end the game. Is what it comes down to.
I don't think I factored in all of the drain that would have, the life gain that would have happened too.
Yeah.
Because what would their Hydra be if they maxed it out? A 6/6?
It's fairly large. Yeah, 6/6. Yeah. So it won't kill you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was a mistake.
Okay, so we do play the spawn. They go to 8. We go to 8. We get to venture twice, which is kind of nice. And let's see, where do you go?
I think I went into Fandelver.
The painful one or Fandelver? Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense here. If we go into Fandelver, yeah, we scry. We take a look.
I looked at like, I was like, do I want to do this? I'm like, I don't think I do.
No, nobody ever does. I
just wasn't winning, right? I'm not ahead on board.
And you scry a Death Etcher to the top, which is nice. We play the Archlich again, and I assume make a Goblin here. Yep, and yeah, we're in a good spot. They attack, we block, or we take it, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, we block. That makes sense.
One trick and you're dead, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or a vampire spawn of their own or something.
Yeah, that's a good point. Honestly, I wouldn't have even considered that. That's a good point.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think you got a little bit lucky here with, like we said before, them just like not noticing the layer, like just forgetting that they had to land there, you know?
Yep, agreed.
So we get in, we play Death Touch Rogue, that's great. We play Archlich, drain them for 1. Yep, agree with that. And I think you end from there. Yeah, their head explodes. So, I mean, yeah, I think this one was overall pretty well played. A few little things in there.
It felt closer than it needed to be, and your observation of not attacking here, and I think there was a point earlier that you would have done something different. I don't recall off the top of my head, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's those, like, basically this one I think overall was pretty well played. Right, this game was pretty well played. There's, like, if you played this, 80% well, I guess I would say, there's going to be, there's that 20% where it's like, of course it didn't matter in this game, but there's going to be games where that 20% matters. It's always striving to get to that 20%, that extra 20% or that extra 10% that you're missing.
Yeah.
Right. Those little decision points that matter. If you have 4 decisions in a game and you make, 3 out of 4 of them, or sorry, 4 big decisions in a game, you make 3 out of 4 of them right. Sometimes that one decision is the one that matters. Sure. Right. So, the one I think I'm always thinking about is just like, how can I play tight? How can I make sure I'm making the best decisions possible?
Yeah, this was just one I was unsure about lines on, and like I think going through it's been very helpful. I mean, I guess just for everybody out there, the reason I flagged these was, hey Alex, I felt like there was meat on the bone still. I think this is the story I say every time with these. Can you help me find it? Because like I've looked at it on my own, or I thought about it at the time. I was like, oh gosh, I don't think there's anything different I could do, because like we can only see what we can see. And it's just nice to go through it with an extra set of eyes here. Yeah.
I always recommend this to people, anybody in my Twitch chat, people at home, where it's like, look, if you are kind of stuck, if you're kind of plateaued in a spot where you're not seeing, you're frustrated, and you're like, I'm losing, I'm not sure why. Like, get a friend if you can. Get somebody on a Discord server. They're gonna be thrilled to help you a lot of times. Just like, give your submit a screenshot to a Discord server, Limited Level Ups Discord or Lord's Limited Discord. There's a lot of people over there that'll be thrilled to help you out, and that second set of eyes really does help a lot of the time. All right, well, let's call it a show. Nathan, any last words from our gameplay video here today? I'm excited to do this for future videos. I think this was a blast.
Yeah, I guess just I like to recap what I learned right in the moment. Save your compact. Your compact tricks are better when your board is more complicated or you have more creatures.
Yeah,
I like that. That makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to try to put that into action moving forward.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean that's like a, it's simple, but I think has a lot of wide applications of like, it's kind of funny, like that's a small heuristic that it's gonna come up in a lot of games, and I'm sure hopefully it'll be helpful in your future games too.
Yeah, I think it'll be super helpful.
All right, well, let's wrap it up from there. Nathan, thank you as always, and everybody out there, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.